Hi, I'm LadyJenevia. Today I'm going to be talking about Netflix's Shadow and Bone. There are some things I'm not allowed to spoil because the publicists sent a list, but I'm excited to finally talk more about how much I love this show. I received the press screeners on Thursday and binged the entire season Thursday night, and then I posted on my community tab and my Twitter asking you, the viewers, what you want to know about the show before it airs. I wrote down all of the questions I got, and I'm just going to go through them. I will also be posting another video about the show before it premieres, and after that, beginning on Friday, I'm going to start posting spoiler videos that will get into a number of different topics to do with the show, so don't forget to subscribe if you want to see even more of what I have to say about the material. Now, let's just get right to the questions and talking points that you, the viewers, wanted me to talk about in my review. The first one is from Starfall Goddess on Twitter, and they wanted to know about the TV score and the world building. The score was great. There were multiple instances where I noticed it and thought to myself, this is a really good score. I took notes while I was watching the season, but I did not write down every time I liked the score. But I will say that even in the opening of the first episode, when nothing has really started yet, I heard the score playing and went, wow, this opening score is amazing. It really helps to enhance the impact of the story and to further guide whatever the emotional intent of the scene is. Joseph Trapanese did the score. I can't play much of it or else I will get copyright claimed, but let me attempt to share a couple of seconds. If that clip is muted, that just means it got copyright claimed and I had to mute it. I'm going to link that video in the description box, so go give it a listen because it's totally worth listening to and it will get you hyped. I actually had it playing while I was writing this review because it's such a vibe. As for the world building, this question is a great time to talk about something I've seen floating around, which is the sentiment that some fans had about feeling like 8 episodes wasn't enough and they wanted more. World building is an integral part of the fantasy genre, and a lot of world building in fantasy ends up being expensive. You have sets, you have costumes, you have VFX for a lot of different things, like magic in the Grishaverse. All of those aspects of Shadow and Bone looked very expensive, and I mean that as a compliment. I love the keftas, the magic looks incredible. Some of that you can see in the trailers, and some of it you have not seen yet. On a storytelling level, I think they explain everything well with the world building, but I also have read the books, so I'm going into the viewing experience already primed to have a better sense of what's going on. However, even though I've read the books, sometimes I forget some of the details of the trivia. For example, there's different types of Grisha, there's materialki, all that jazz. I don't always remember every name and which one is which, but that does not in any way affect my ability to follow or appreciate the story. It's a very character-driven show, so if you're watching this and you're not a book reader, I wouldn't worry about getting confused about the names of things, because if there's anything you missed, you can always just go back and rewatch the show to clear up those details. And if it is an important part of the show, it's probably going to get repeated more than once, which will help you to learn it and understand it. Before I move on to the next question, I only just found out a couple of days ago that the author and the people that are making the show are pronouncing the word Grisha as Grisha? Why? It's a choice.
Choices.
I don't want to get into an argument over phonetics, but I've been saying it as Grisha for over a year now while I've been making videos about the show, and none of the book readers have ever said anything to me about that. I did have an Eastern European viewer that corrected me after watching one of my videos about the way the name Zhenya is supposed to be pronounced, which was super helpful and greatly appreciated. I'm not being sarcastic. I like learning how to pronounce cultural words correctly. But this feels like another GIF argument. So if you are a reader of the books, tell me how you've been saying it since you first started reading them. Do you say Grisha or Grisha? Next question. Would be great to hear if there are emotional scenes or if we'll get to see some epic moments. Yes to both. I cried multiple times watching the show. At least 90% of the time that I was crying, it was because of the scenes between Alina and Mal. This is an epic love story. It was not an epic love story in the books, but in the show, I felt like my heart was going to explode out of my chest. It's been a while since I had a ship that really did that for me. This is like a top 5 all-time greatest romance in anything I've ever seen. Jessie and Archie were incredible. I even tweeted and tagged Archie in it, and he replied, that was hilarious. Epic moments, yes. The action, the magic, the drama, the show is epic. I can't just hone in on only one thing. Epic is a great word to describe it, but it's never epic at the expense of the emotional character content. Next question. Definitely the quality of the dialogue and acting. Both were great. I thought it was extremely well written, not only for dialogue, but everything else the writers had to map out of what's going to happen on the show, and all of the performances were great. I don't recall any of them bothering me or making me get critical. Would you recommend binge watching? Yes, absolutely. For starters, the show needs high ratings in order to be renewed, so watch it opening weekend and get everyone you know to do the same. We'll talk more about renewal later, but also there's an incredible momentum and sense of urgency in the show that is very well suited to binging. How are the CGI effects and overall aesthetic of the show? All great. I think a lot of those things you've already been able to get a sense of through the promotional materials, including photos and videos. Costumes, production design, VFX, all great. Is there banter between the Six of Crows characters, and what are their relationships like? Yes, definitely banter. One of the questions I had going into watching the show about how the Crows would be integrated into the Shadow and Bone book was whether or not they already knew each other, since it's supposed to be prequel material to their books. They do know each other already, and the writing and performances convey that really well. There's this sense of familiarity between them. I think Jesper's banter is the most fun because that's just the type of character he is. You can see in that trailer when he does the wink. That's classic Jesper. Their relationships are great. You can tell they know each other. They have history. I feel like this question is just a sly way of asking about Kaz and Inej, which is why I wanted to give Jesper his turn in the spotlight since it is a Crows question. I'll put it to you like this. The first time you see Kaz and Inej together in a scene, if you already ship them because of the books, someone in that scene says something that's going to make you scream. How does the show touch on the backstories of the Six of Crows characters? Are there a lot of flashbacks for both the Six of Crows and the Shadow and Bone side? The only people who have different actors cast for backstories are Alina and Mal. You've seen them in the trailer. A lot of the Crows' backstories are not explored as in-depth compared to Alina because the show is already jam-packed. But if you've read the books, you will most likely pick up on certain hints here and there or nods to details about the Crows that the general viewers are not going to pick up on. This is why you all need to stream the show and promote it as much as you can so the ratings are high enough to get renewed and the writers can dig even deeper. Out of all the Crows, Inej is the one that has the most backstory explained. They don't show it, but that's the right choice in my opinion, because if you know what happened to her, trying to have people, especially child actors, physically act that out, I don't like that. It really doesn't sit right with me, and Amita is more than capable of portraying the emotional weight of Inej's past and how it is affecting her in the present story, and Inej is a character that a lot of people need to see. I really think you're going to love her. What was your favorite episode? I don't have one right now. Maybe I will change my mind eventually, but I think the entire story is so tight and brilliantly crafted and brought to life that to me, it's like a giant, epic 8-hour masterpiece that the world needs to stream and appreciate. It's not a procedural show. It's serialized storytelling, and it's very well done, and I love it. Does the Crow's storyline satisfy? As in, is it believable that this season's story could have happened before Six of Crows? Mostly yes, in the sense that I really enjoyed how the writers have integrated the characters into the Shadow and Bone story, and they've been effective in how they maintained the essence of the Crows as characters. There's still room to eventually get to the stories that you've read in the duology, but also the show is its own thing. They have made some changes to the books when adapting them. The most obvious example of that is the fact that Alina is now half Shu. I can't give too many more specifics in answering this question, though, because of things that are on the list of don't talk about this spoilers that the publicist sent, so let's just move on to the next question. Which character came to you as a surprise? Alina and Mal, but especially Mal. Alina was so bland in the books, and Mal, you barely learn anything about him because Alina is an unreliable narrator, and you are so limited in what you're able to learn about a lot of the characters. Mal has set a new standard for male romantic leads in headships. I did not even know that it was possible to have a romance like this in a big Hollywood project. These two put me through it emotionally, in the best way. I kept crying because of how deeply moving and romantic and powerful their story is. Alina loves him so much, and Christina Strain, one of the writers from the show, said when I interviewed her that Mal is really sweet and that he would go to the ends of the earth for the love of his life. Yes, she was exactly right. You can clearly tell that a lot of writers involved in this were women that are very aware of how toxic and unappealing a lot of male romantic leads in Hollywood fiction can be, and they went above and beyond to make him the best romantic lead for Alina, and I just loved him. I love both of them. Alina was so relatable to me in a way that I was emotionally unprepared for, in a good way, and the fact that she has this amazing man that is so good to her, I want what they have. I will not settle for anything less. Next question, how is the Crows dynamic? Great. Sometimes when you have a trio, you can run the risk of someone feeling neglected by the writers, but you get great moments of them all together, of the different duo pairings, so it feels really well developed. You can tell that the characters work well one-on-one with each other, and they also work well when they're all together. Is Jesper as iconic as he is in the books? Jesper was my favorite character in the books, a double bicon with all that charm. Oh my gosh, and Kit absolutely nailed it. His material was great and he performed the hell out of it. You are going to love him. Is Mal better in the show? Yes, I know I've said it already, but I will happily say it again and again because it bears repeating. I adore Mal and I adore his relationship with Alina. Character arcs? Great. Not every character has the same amount of material or development, but considering that it's 8 episodes instead of something like 10 or 13, the writing is incredibly efficient at taking a lot of these characters on a journey, and we as that audience get to go on that journey with them. Sometimes the character isn't necessarily evolving, but their arc in the season might just be that you as a viewer get to learn more about them or spend time with them, so it's less of a character development as it is a character exploration. But either way, there is lots of good stuff to be found. How is the pacing of the show? Is it better to watch in chunks, all at once, or episode by episode? I know we will all be binging it to show our support, but on rewatch, what would you recommend? Binge it. Every time. Binge it. When you watch a movie, typically, you watch the movie. You're not really supposed to just watch 10 minutes and then watch another part of it later. This story is like that. It's an 8-hour epic. Binge it. Do the Crows get the amount of screen time they deserve? Also, how compelling and likable is Alina as a character? Anytime you love a character, you are always going to want more screen time of them. But considering how much is happening in these 8 episodes, the Crows do a lot. As for Alina, I found her to be extremely compelling. I love her. That's my girl. And I would do anything to protect her. Wait a minute. Am I Mal? How was Kaz and Inej's relationship? Did they have chemistry? I knew someone was going to ask this. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that it is a slow burn, but they have a slow burn in the books too. So I have to tread carefully with how I talk about this. There is a certain amount of distance between them, and we who have read the books know why Kaz keeps distance. So for Kaz and Inej, it's more about what do they talk about, and it's about what they are willing to do for each other. I will say that there are moments in the show that if you ship them, these moments are going to do a lot to your feelings and to your emotions. You have to remember that when it comes to Kaz and Inej, it's a slow burn, so you really need to stream the show and promote the hell out of it. And in particular to people that are outside of the show's core fan base so that it can get renewed and the writers can keep inching along with that slow burn. I know which lines and which moments from the season are going to get cut together in fan cams. If you ship them, you will have plenty of material, okay? You're gonna emotionally yell about things, guaranteed. The way they handle the interweaving of both book series, very well. I was very impressed, and the further you get into the season, the more impressed you're going to be by how they did that. I can't say much more on that because of that list of topics the publicists have said people are not allowed to mention before the premiere. Are Matthias and Nina just like in the books, or did the show try to improve their relationship? I've mentioned this before in my Shadow and Bone coverage. I am not a fan of this story. It is extremely offensive to do this romanticization of pairing up a member of a marginalized group with a member of the oppressive group that is trying to exterminate this group. This entire story between them reeks of caucasity. Hollywood and the publishing industry, they're always trying to do things like this. They'll do things like pair a Jewish character with a Nazi during World War II. It's extremely offensive. The Druskeli, or however the hell you pronounce it, is the Grishaverse version of a Nazi. I think the writers did what they could with trying to tone down how horrendous he is. When you have a show that is shining a light on racism and how traumatizing that is to our safety and well-being, they could never show Matthias on screen doing what all the book readers know the Druskeli do and expect the audience to root for them as a couple. I mean, if you're Caucasian enough to ship them, I think you'll be happy with the execution of their story. If you've read the books and looked at the promo material, I think you all already know what part of their story is being adapted. But anyway.
Y'all already know how we feel about this. Shall we move on, Zale?
What were Mal and Alina like?
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular.
Would love to know if we see some of the Darkling's backstory. Yes, you do. In fact, you can catch a glimpse of that backstory in the trailer. Go ahead and look through it if you feel like speculating amongst yourselves. I wanted to ask if Jesper's bisexuality is represented properly. There's been a lot of criticism on Twitter when an article came out talking about the show. The article implied that the show represented Jesper's sexuality by having him hook up with someone during a heist. If it's true, I personally think it's very out of character for Jess, considering how much he cared about his friends in the books and knew when to be serious in certain situations. Twitter can be very toxic, and I'm hoping that things were just taken out of context. But having people who are bi hooking up with anyone they find attractive is a harmful stereotype that is very prominent in media. If it's possible, I wanted to know your thoughts about this, because I really hope they did our bicon, that is Jesper, right. This is a great time to introduce a concept from the field of psychology called stereotype threat. Stereotype threat refers to the risk of confirming negative stereotypes about an individual's racial, ethnic, gender, or other cultural group. So you can apply that to entertainment media in the sense that people might not want to play or might not want to see characters from particular groups doing things that they feel are stereotypical of that group. To give you a tamer example, Asian viewers might not want to see Asian characters playing doctors because it's reductive and we as a group are not being seen in a way that is as diverse as we are. The lack of representation is such that we might not want to see Asian doctors because even though there are plenty of doctors who are Asian, not every Asian is a doctor. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to see Asian doctors if you can fully develop them as characters. The prime example of that, Christina Yang. As for the topic of bisexual representation, you can apply a similar concept. The reason why that stereotype is upsetting to many bisexual people is because there is often an over-representation of bisexuals that are promiscuous or hypersexual. Some bisexuals might be like that, but definitely not all of them. I don't have a problem with Jesper hooking up with someone because he is a character that is developed beyond that. He's a very flirtatious and charming character who happens to be bisexual. We shouldn't shame characters of any orientation just because they hooked up with someone. If they're both consenting adults and they're interested in each other, let them do what they want. Jesper isn't just a flirt. He's a badass sharpshooter, he's a gambling addict, he's a loving friend. I just really can't believe that I had to defend Jesper against slut-shaming, but there we are. Those are the questions that were submitted within the window of me taking questions. Once I finished writing this video, that's when I stopped taking questions. So thank you so much to everyone for asking such great questions. Don't forget to subscribe for even more discussions of Shadow and Bone. I'm going to post another video about it before the show premieres, so keep an eye out for that. Also, feel free to check out my other videos about Netflix's Shadow and Bone. I have several already posted, including a collaboration with LadyJenevia. If any of you know her, you probably know her already. You should. She's a very big YouTuber and super talented and really funny. That's it for today. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.